The old hotel loomed ominously on the outskirts of town, its crumbling facade a testament to years of neglect and decay. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deserted streets, a group of strangers arrived at its doorstep, drawn together by fate or perhaps something more sinister. Among them was Sarah, a weary traveler seeking shelter for the night after her car broke down on the lonely road. Beside her stood Mark, a skeptical journalist intrigued by the rumors surrounding the hotel's haunted past. Close behind them trailed a family of four, the parents hoping to recapture the magic of their honeymoon while their children giggled with excitement. As they stepped into the lobby, a chill ran down their spines and they exchanged nervous glances. The air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay, and the once grand furnishings were now faded and threadbare. A stooped figure emerged from the shadows, the hotel's caretaker, his eyes hollow and haunted. He welcomed them with a crooked smile, his voice barely more than a whisper as he handed them their room keys. "Welcome to the Ravenwood Hotel," he murmured, his words sending a shiver down Sarah's spine. "I hope you enjoy your stay." But as they made their way to their rooms, a sense of unease settled over them like a heavy fog. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that unseen eyes followed their every move. Little did they know that their arrival had awakened something sinister within the hotel's walls, something that hungered for their fear and despair. And as the night stretched on, they would soon discover that they were not alone in the Ravenwood Hotel. As the guests settled into their rooms, the oppressive atmosphere of the Ravenwood Hotel seemed to weigh heavily upon them. Sarah unpacked her suitcase with trembling hands, her nerves on edge from the strange occurrences she had already witnessed. Meanwhile, Mark paced the length of his room, his mind buzzing with questions. Could there truly be something supernatural lurking within these walls, or was it merely the product of overactive imaginations and superstition? Down the hall, the family of four gathered in their room, trying to distract themselves with board games and laughter. But even the children couldn't shake the feeling of unease that permeated the air. As night fell and the hotel plunged into darkness, the guests found it increasingly difficult to ignore the eerie presence that seemed to surround them. Shadows danced along the walls, and strange noises echoed through the corridors. Sarah tossed and turned in her bed, tormented by vivid nightmares that seemed all too real. Mark sat hunched over his laptop, poring over old newspaper clippings and eyewitness accounts of the hotel's dark history. And in the family's room, the children huddled together under the covers, whispering nervously about the strange figures they had seen lurking in the shadows. Outside, a storm brewed on the horizon, casting the hotel in an eerie half-light. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and lightning illuminated the sky in jagged bursts. As the night stretched on, the guests found themselves drawn inexorably toward the heart of the hotel, where secrets long buried began to stir once more. And as they would soon discover, the Ravenwood Hotel held more than its fair share of dark secrets waiting to be unearthed. With each passing hour, the Ravenwood Hotel seemed to come alive with unseen forces, its walls whispering secrets long forgotten. Strange phenomena became commonplace, sending shivers down the spines of the guests. Sarah awoke in the dead of night to find her room bathed in an ethereal glow, the faint outline of a figure hovering at the foot of her bed. Frozen with fear, she watched as the apparition dissipated into thin air, leaving behind only a chilling sense of dread. Meanwhile, Mark's investigations led him to the hotel's deserted corridors, where he caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of his eye. Shadows flitted across the walls, and distant whispers echoed through the darkness, taunting him with half-formed words and cryptic warnings. In the family's room, the children awoke to find their toys scattered across the floor, as if moved by unseen hands. Terrified, they huddled together in the corner, their eyes wide with fear as they listened to the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth outside their door. As dawn broke, the guests gathered in the lobby, their faces pale and drawn from a night spent in fitful sleep. They exchanged nervous glances, each one silently wondering if they were the only ones experiencing the strange occurrences that plagued the hotel. But as they ventured out into the daylight, the sense of unease only grew stronger. The once grand hotel seemed to loom larger than ever, its windows staring blankly out at the world beyond. And as they would soon discover, the ghostly presence that haunted the Ravenwood Hotel was far more powerful and malevolent than they could have ever imagined. Determined to uncover the truth behind the strange occurrences plaguing the Ravenwood Hotel, the guests embarked on a quest for answers, delving into its dark and mysterious history. Sarah spent hours poring over dusty tomes and yellowed newspaper clippings in the hotel's neglected library, piecing together the fragments of a story long forgotten. She learned of a tragic fire that had consumed the hotel decades ago, claiming the lives of countless guests and staff members. Meanwhile, Mark scoured the internet for any mention of the hotel's haunted past, uncovering chilling first-hand accounts of ghostly encounters and inexplicable phenomena. He reached out to local historians and paranormal experts, hoping to shed light on the mysteries that shrouded the Ravenwood Hotel. In the family's room, the children stumbled upon a hidden passageway, concealed behind a crumbling wall, leading to a forgotten chamber deep beneath the hotel. There, they discovered a cache of old photographs and letters, each one offering a tantalizing glimpse into the lives of those who had once called the Ravenwood Hotel home. As the day wore on, the guests began to piece together the puzzle of the hotel's past, uncovering a web of deceit and betrayal that stretched back generations. They learned of a powerful curse that had been placed upon the hotel by a vengeful spirit, doomed to wander its halls for all eternity. But even as they uncovered the secrets of the Ravenwood Hotel, they realized that the true horror lay not in its past, but in its present. For the spirits that haunted its halls were not content to remain confined to the shadows. They hungered for revenge, and they would stop at nothing to claim their victims. As the sun set on another day at the Ravenwood Hotel, the guests found themselves facing their deepest fears and darkest secrets. The oppressive atmosphere of the hotel seemed to amplify their anxieties, turning even the most mundane moments into harrowing experiences. Sarah's nightmares grew more vivid and terrifying with each passing night, her dreams haunted by visions of the hotel's tragic past. She found herself unable to sleep, tormented by the specters that lurked just beyond the edge of her consciousness. Meanwhile, Mark's skepticism began to waver in the face of mounting evidence of the supernatural. He witnessed firsthand the disembodied voices and spectral apparitions that roamed the hotel's corridors, their presence undeniable and impossible to ignore. In the family's room, the children's laughter turned to screams of terror as they found themselves pursued by unseen forces. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that seemed to reach out for them with icy fingers. As the night wore on, the guests found themselves drawn inexorably toward the heart of the hotel, where they would confront their deepest fears and darkest secrets. They knew that they must stand together against the malevolent forces that threatened to consume them, or risk being swallowed whole by the darkness. But little did they know that their greatest challenges still lay ahead, and that the true horror of the Ravenwood Hotel had yet to reveal itself. As they would soon discover, the spirits that haunted its halls were not content to remain passive observers. They hungered for their souls, and they would stop at nothing to claim them. With each passing night, the malevolent forces within the Ravenwood Hotel grew stronger, their grip on the guests tightening with each whispered threat and ghostly apparition. As fear and paranoia threatened to consume them, The guests knew that they must take desperate measures to escape the hotel's clutches. Sarah, driven by a fierce determination to survive, sought out the hotel's caretaker in hopes of uncovering a way to banish the spirits that haunted its halls. She pleaded with him for answers, but his cryptic warnings only served to deepen her sense of dread. Meanwhile, Mark enlisted the help of a local psychic, hoping that her connection to the spirit world would provide them with the insight they needed to break free from the hotel's curse. Together, they conducted seances and performed rituals in hopes of appeasing the restless souls that prowled the corridors. In the family's room, the children clung to each other in terror as the walls seemed to close in around them. Desperate to protect them from harm, their parents barricaded the door and prayed for deliverance from the nightmare that had become their reality. As the night wore on, the guests faced their greatest challenge yet, confronting the malevolent spirit that lurked at the heart of the hotel. Armed with nothing but their courage and determination, they prepared to face the darkness head-on, knowing that their survival depended on their ability to overcome their deepest fears. But as they would soon discover, the true horror of the Ravenwood Hotel was far more insidious than they could have ever imagined. An escape would come at a price far greater than any of them could have anticipated. With the malevolent forces of the Ravenwood Hotel closing in around them, trust among the guests began to fray, replaced by suspicion and paranoia. Each whispered word and furtive glance seemed to carry the weight of betrayal as they questioned whether they could truly rely on one another in their fight for survival. Sarah, haunted by visions of the hotel's dark past, grew increasingly convinced that one of her fellow guests was responsible for their plight. Every creak of the floorboards and rustle of the curtains seemed to confirm her worst fears, driving a wedge between her and those she once considered allies. Meanwhile, Mark's skepticism hardened into cynicism as the horrors of the hotel continued to escalate. He questioned the motives of those around him, wondering if they were truly seeking to escape the hotel's clutches or if they harbored darker intentions. In the family's room, tensions reached a boiling point as the children's cries for help fell on deaf ears. Their parents, consumed by fear and desperation, turned on one another, each accusing the other of leading them into this nightmare. As the night wore on, the guests found themselves trapped in a labyrinth of suspicion and mistrust, unable to discern friend from foe. Every shadow seemed to conceal a hidden threat, every whispered conversation a potential betrayal. But as they would soon discover, the true enemy was not among them. It lurked within the very walls of the Ravenwood Hotel, feeding off their fear and uncertainty, and waiting patiently for the moment when it could claim their souls for its own. As the clock struck midnight, signaling the darkest hour of the night, the guests of the Ravenwood Hotel found themselves facing their greatest challenge yet. With trust shattered and alliances fractured, they knew that they must stand together if they were to have any hope of escaping the clutches of the malevolent spirits that haunted its halls. Gathering in the hotel's grand ballroom, the guests prepared to confront the source of the hotel's curse head-on. Armed with makeshift weapons and a newfound resolve, they braced themselves for the final showdown against the forces of darkness. Sarah, her nerves frayed but her determination unwavering, led the charge, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. Mark, his skepticism replaced by a steely resolve, stood at her side, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. In the family's room, the children clung to each other for comfort, their parents standing guard against the encroaching darkness. Despite their fear, they refused to back down, knowing that their survival depended on their ability to stand united against the evil that threatened to consume them. As the tension in the room reached its breaking point, a deafening silence descended upon the hotel, broken only by the sound of their ragged breaths and the pounding of their hearts. And then, with a bone-chilling shriek, the spirits of the Ravenwood Hotel revealed themselves, their twisted forms twisting and contorting in the dim light. With a battle cry, the guests launched themselves into the fray, their weapons clashing against the spectral forms that surrounded them. Each blow struck true, weakening the hold of the spirits on the hotel and driving them back into the shadows from whence they came. But as the battle raged on, it became clear that victory would not come easily. The spirits fought with a ferocity born of centuries of anger and despair, their unearthly wails echoing through the halls of the Ravenwood Hotel. And as the guests fought for their lives, they knew that only one outcome was possible: victory or death, with no middle ground. For in the heart of the Ravenwood Hotel, there could be no mercy, no quarter given. Only the strong would survive, and the weak would be consumed by the darkness forever. Amidst the chaos of the final showdown, as the guests of the Ravenwood Hotel battled against the malevolent spirits that sought to consume them, a moment of clarity dawned upon them. In the midst of the terror and the turmoil, they began to see the truth hidden within the shadows. Sarah, her resolve unyielding despite the horrors that surrounded her, pieced together the fragments of the hotel's dark history. She realized that the spirits that haunted its halls were not merely restless souls seeking vengeance, but victims themselves, trapped in an endless cycle of torment and despair. Mark, his skepticism replaced by a newfound understanding, saw the true nature of the curse that had befallen the Ravenwood Hotel. He understood that the only way to break free from its grip was to confront the sins of the past and lay them to rest once and for all. In the family's room, the children clung to each other as their parents fought valiantly against the encroaching darkness. But even as they faced the terror that surrounded them, they found solace in the bonds of love and family that held them together. As the battle raged on, the guests began to realize that the key to their salvation lay not in defeating the spirits that haunted the Ravenwood Hotel, but in understanding them. They sought out the spirits' lost memories and unfulfilled desires, offering them the peace they had long been denied. And as they reached out to the spirits with compassion and understanding, a miracle occurred. The shadows began to recede, the unearthly wails fading into whispers on the wind. And in their place, a sense of peace descended upon the Ravenwood Hotel, its cursed halls finally free from the grip of darkness. But even as the guests celebrated their victory, they knew that the true test lay ahead, escaping the Ravenwood Hotel and leaving its haunted past behind them once and for all. And as they prepared to depart, they carried with them the memories of their harrowing ordeal, a testament to the power of courage, compassion, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. With the spirits of the Ravenwood Hotel finally at peace, the guests prepared to make their escape from its cursed halls. But as they gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, a sense of unease lingered in the air, a lingering reminder of the horrors they had endured. Sarah, her heart heavy with the weight of their shared ordeal, led the way, her eyes scanning the dimly lit corridors for any sign of danger. Mark followed close behind, his skepticism replaced by a newfound respect for the supernatural forces that had threatened to consume them. In the family's room, the children clung to their parents, their innocence shattered by the horrors they had witnessed. But even as they prepared to leave the hotel behind, they knew that their lives would never be the same. As they made their way to the lobby, a sense of anticipation filled the air, mingled with a lingering sense of dread. The door loomed before them, a portal to the outside world and the promise of freedom from the horrors that had trapped them within the Ravenwood Hotel. But as they stepped out into the cool night air, a sudden sense of foreboding washed over them. The hotel's facade seemed to shimmer and shift before their eyes, its once grand exterior crumbling away to reveal the true nature of the darkness that lurked within. And then, with a deafening roar, the hotel collapsed in on itself, its cursed halls consumed by the darkness that had plagued it for so long. As the dust settled and the echoes of its destruction faded into the night, the guests looked on in awe and disbelief, knowing that they had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. But even as they walked away from the ruins of the Ravenwood Hotel, they knew that its legacy would live on in their memories, a reminder of the power of fear and the resilience of the human spirit. And as they turned their backs on the darkness that had threatened to consume them, they vowed to never forget the horrors they had faced and to cherish the light that shone bright in the darkness.